Hello and welcome, family, to another episode of Dr. Mumbi's Spiritual Show. Although this is actually going to appear on the main channel, so definitely make sure you're subscribed to both. Main channel, Dr. Mumbi Show, right now, we're just focusing on Kenya, on East Africa, and the energy of southern Ethiopia. Let's say that the East African community, which is ancient southern Ethiopia, and then we have our other channel, Dr. Mumbi Spiritual Show, which just talks about everything spiritual. And thanks to every single person that has subscribed. Of course, special shout out to our Patreon family. Thank you so much for supporting us, family, on there and enabling us to continue to do the show. We've had to reduce our programming on YouTube, so definitely consider supporting us there. And if you want almost daily exclusive content, definitely consider joining us on that platform. So, family, the sad thing is, because of our divisiveness, even online, with so many people believing so many beliefs, we're still in kindergarten when right now we should literally be graduating from college. We're still having kindergarten kind of conversations because everyone has been given a voice now. And that was done on purpose, where even the most ignorant are the most bold and they contaminate the group consciousness. Because as I've told you for so long, family, it's all about the group consciousness. And you can separate yourselves from that group consciousness. And remember, not everyone is equal. It's not like a democracy, one man, one vote. There's some people whose power is equivalent of 1 million people. There's some people whose power is equivalent of 1 billion people. Rare, but they're there. But because we're so misaligned, and I believe the reason we're misaligned is because there's so many nations in Africa that were warring nations, that were enemies of each other, that Babylon studied, researched for at least 100 or something years, and then created nations that put those warring nations together, that carved up the Bantu, that carved up the Ma people. The Bantu are the people of the sky. Ma means truth, the Maasai, for example. That just, and then put us with people who are from other nations and then told us we have to unite and become one thing. And it's wasted so much of our time. But for me, what I can envision as a Bantu myself, what I see very clearly is the Bantu nation awakening and coming together. The whole of Africa, I'm not sure about that. But the Bantu nation, I see us arising and coming together. And we have the enemies of our souls who are also very busy. The Nilots or whatever. I mean, and without understanding all of these differences is why we remain weak. Because if you see, for example, and I'm not going to get too deep into this because I've done 2 shows on this. If you look at Rishi, for example, I did a show on his connection to Kenya and why Kenya is very significant and very special. It's the Hindu community. So it wasn't the 1 billion Indians that have created these global empires or become part of the global empire. But it's like the Hindus who have been so diligent with their gods and their language and maintaining their spiritual identity that they're now able to move into their inheritance. Because as I told you, we're watching the rise of Africa and India, or Asia, I should say, not just India. But I wanted to share a little nugget of truth that I've been permitted to share by the elders about Kenya. You see, Kenya actually stands for the nest of Yah. What many would say is the nest of the Most High, or the resting place of the Most High. And it actually mirrors what we're told about Mount Kenya, which is Mount Zion, being the resting place of the home of the Most High. And this name was not, they try and say that they didn't understand how, the Musungus came and they didn't understand how we were pronouncing Kenya, or Kirinyaga or whatever, so they came up with Kenya and it's just a random name. No. Every name has its own signature that shows its identity for the global players. They know what they're doing spiritually. It shows its identity, and yet it closes them inside. Because Kenya is the resting place of the Most High, but Yah is not the Most High. You see, Yah or Yahweh is actually an ancient dragon. I mean, you can do your research. You'll see Yahweh means dragon. And Kenya is actually a dragon nation. So is the divided kingdom. So is China. But because we are a dragon nation, and by the way, we've been ruled by a dragon family since independence. That's how they were able to create their empire. And we have good dragons and bad dragons. I'm not even going to get into this because there's so many people that are not going to get it. And I don't have time to feel your lower vibes pulling my energy. It's so sad to see how ignorant our people are. We should be discussing things like, how are we going to mentally build a pyramid? Instead, we're trying to still convince people that Jesus didn't exist. It's so crazy. Oh my God. So Kenya is a dragon nation. And the divided kingdom is also a dragon nation. And they used the dragon energy of Kenya by totally hiding that from the main story. Only the super elite would know. They used that energy, that dragon energy of Kenya, to rule the world. Because it was almost like, if you look at the Anunnaki story and you make all the connections, it's almost like we were in the age of the dragon. But the age of the dragon has ended. And now you could say we're in the age of the lion, the lioness. It's debatable. Those are stories for other days. But as the home of the dragon, which is why we get our name, Kenya, the nest of Yah, Yahweh being a dragon, it means that we have supernatural power compared to other nations, which is why they closed our first eye, family. So that you couldn't see the dragons that are very much here. The other nations, the other spiritual nations that are very much here. The others who would be considered like a Wakanda, we would try and say are our immediate ancestors, but they are definitely about staying away from us because they say that we're mentally sick, we're mentally contaminated, and they don't want that contamination to spread. So even they have been very, happy to hide. And the Agekoyo, the Bantu, we're the people of the sky, but some of us are also the nation of dragons. The Agekoyo is a nation of dragons, family. It's like I got confirmation when I was reading this friend of mine's Facebook. He's called Demi. Brilliant. I mean, just really unleashing the information of the ancestors. And he was talking about, I think it was him who was talking about the name of the dragon and how our people had all these rituals, with the river dragon. But people will be here like, what is this? Oh, they've shut you down. You were living the what they call the fairy tale. Yeah, they're even fairies, by the way. But they shut this down, and then they give you food, water, and all these things that keep it shut down, so you can't even see it, so you can't even conceptualize it. And they place so much emphasis. Because you're walking around blind, literally, spiritually blind, that is why you give so much power to your physical senses. But with these eyes, there's always a spiritual eye. With your ears, there's always a spiritual ear. With your mouth, there's always a spiritual mouth, a spiritual tongue, a spiritual voice. And so by totally, when Kenya fell, because this is about Kenya really, but southern Ethiopia, when Kenya fell and totally lost its spiritual identity, that means that all the things we weren't using could be hijacked. Because what they don't talk about, family, is how there was an ancient war that was going on amongst us between the Bantus and the enemies of the Bantus. Do your research. And so We were sold out in many ways. There were so many collaborators with the Mzungu because we were in an ancient war, because there are different nations here. And we went through, because we were fighting and trying to dominate each other, it opened up a window for others to come and fight and dominate us. And maybe the gods or the ancestors thought this would bring us all together. But I was reading a comment just earlier today, and this guy was talking about how it's so sad that our unity only comes when we're complaining about something. Our excitement only comes when we're saying, oh, Babylon has done this and Babylon has done that and shame on them. But when it comes to actually doing something, acting out on something, no one is quite ready to go that extra mile. And that is why the ancestors are now calling for a separation. And there will be a very noticeable separation. That's why so many were not protected from the double Big Mac and ended up eating that thing and then getting another one and then getting another booster to feed their, appetite. That's why they weren't protected, because the ones who were spiritually protected, it didn't happen. But so many of our people, especially those in a religious psychosis and those in Babylon, fell for it. No questions asked. But these are things that are so highly censored. So definitely keep a lookout for our VIP Sundays family, where we'll be really talking more and going more in depth about this kind of stuff. We will also be publishing more information on our Rumble related to, the pandemic and everything that happened, so that you can start to, at least if you see what's going on. But Kenyans need to wake up to the fact that way deeper things are going on now. And you see with Kenya, the nest of the Most High, or the nest of the dragon. The great dragon, actually, because it's not just one dragon anyway, let me not even go there. Is that there's a nation and then there's another nation in Kenya. There's this other nation that has been there that was artificially created to entrap the real nation with ignorance, with all kinds of confusion, 42 tribes that hate each other, all this nonsense. And those mental issues and tribal issues block the inner nation with the fuckery, literally, of this other overlaying nation. But the inner nation is emerging because now it's survival time. The outer nation of Kenya cannot even handle the energy of Yah. It's too weak, it's too disorganized. We're led by greedy, ignorant people who are suffering from religious psychosis. It can't work. And so the reason I'm even being permitted to share this, and for those who get it, you'll get it. For those who don't, I've even gotten tired of reading the comments because of the low vibes that come in there, who just don't get it. We don't have time, I'm sorry. It's because the Dragon Nation is re-emerging. The real Dragon Nation. And so many of our people are at risk of not making it. And not the people in the villages, the people living their lives outside of Babylon. Those ones will get to, and they'll be changed in a twinkle of an eye. It's more the so-called educated, the so-called middle class, the ones who have a little money and a lot of ignorance. They're the ones who are really, they've put their bloodlines in such danger, man. Because they can't even hear. There's someone here who probably heard me say dragon, and their religious psychosis caused them to go into a cognitive dissonance and they had to log off. It's so terrible. Mental slavery is the worst form of slavery, family. And so many of our people are still in it. But those who supervise it, those middlemen who are keeping it alive, those are the ones that now are being targeted by the ancestors because they're still standing in the way. Those nations that even called themselves after Kenya anointed themselves as the dragon kings and the dragon queens, because Kenya's been ruled by a dragon queen. But there's good dragons and there's bad dragons. Anyway, I'm not even going to get into that. It's too much. But this is just a nugget to stir up your spirit, man. To raise your curiosity at the possibility that there's something way deeper going on than what meets the eye. Tuko pamoja.